Long ago, in a kingdom forgotten to time, there lived a young, promising knight. This wasn't just any knight, he was a lieutenant of a fearsome force called the Iron Order, a brotherhood sworn to defend all of their king's lands. This knight saw countless battles and numerous conquests on the back of his trusty warhorse. This knight showed such promise that the commander of the Iron Order saw him as a potential successor. This knight's name was Hecarim. As Hecarim grew older and matured, so too did his obsessive hunger for glory, at any cost. The knight commander came to realize that Hecarim must never lead them. When Hecarim was told that he was unfit to become the next commander, he became furious and spiteful. However, he bit back his anger and continued his duties as a knight. During a battle, the commander of the Iron Order found himself surrounded by enemy forces and cut off from his fellow knights. Hecarim, seeing this as a promising opportunity, turned away and left him to die. At the battle's end, the Iron Order, oblivious to what Hecarim had done, swore allegiance to him and appointed him as the next commander. After a series of unfortunate events, the queen died and the king that ruled over the Iron Order became a paranoid tyrant. He commanded Hecarim and the other knights to police the land, executing all who would disrespect the crown. The Iron Order earned a dreadful reputation as ruthless enforcers. Towns and villages burned, and hundreds were put to the sword. One of the king's most trusted generals returned from a foreign land and informed him that an isolated nation could hold the key to reviving the late queen. Hecarim overheard this and became obsessed with conquering this newly discovered nation, and manipulated the king and the general into traveling there. Once they arrived, Hecarim was met by a group of scholars and mages who refused to let them pass. The king ordered his soldiers to slaughter anyone who stood in their way, and so Hecarim did with a smile on his face. The Iron Order ransacked the city and looted its arcane vaults. Amid the chaos, a lowly custodian agreed to grant the king access to the waters of life. When the dead queen was placed in this sacred spring, an event called the Ruination changed history forever. A blast wave of magical force tore across the land, shattering every last building and leaving their fragments suspended in the searing sunlight. In its wake came the Black Mist, a billowing hurricane that dragged every living creature it touched into its shrieking, roiling embrace. Hecarim tried to rally the Iron Order, hoping to make it back to their ships, but the mist claimed them one by one as they fled. Alone and defiant to the end, the Knight Commander was taken by the shadows. He and his mighty steed were fused into a monstrous spectral abomination that reflected the darkness in Hecarim's heart, a brazen creature of fury and spite, at one with the Black Mist, yet utterly enslaved by it. Bound forevermore to the Shadow Isles, Hecarim has spent centuries in a sinister mockery of his former life, cursed to patrol the nightmarish lands he once intended to conquer. Whenever the Black Mist reaches out beyond their shores, he and the otherworldly hosts of the Iron Order ride out to slaughter the living in memory of the glories long past. Hecarim is a spectral fusion of man and beast, cursed to ride down the souls of the living for all of eternity. When the Blessed Isles fell into shadow, this proud knight was undone by the destructive energies of the Ruination, along with all of his cavalry and their mounts. Now, whenever the Black Mist reaches out across Runeterra, he leads their devastating charge, reveling in the slaughter and crushing foes beneath his armored hooves. When designing his stat block, I had an inspiration to meld two very different and very unique stat blocks together, those being the Centaur stat block that I found on D&D Beyond, and the Champion stat block from Volo's Guide to Monsters. And I thought it would be kind of poetic to make Hecarim's stat block a fusion of two other stat blocks. To start with, I increased his hit points to surpass that of a champion, and I left him with 18 AC. This feels like a good balance considering he resists all non-magical attacks like most high CR creatures. Taking from examples of his lore, he had great physical prowess, so I gave him great physical stats and saving throws, mixed with just a pinch of wisdom and charisma to reflect on his leadership skills. Moving on to his attacks, this is where my Hecarim starts to come to unlife. We gave him 3 legendary resistances to shrug off problematic spells and abilities. We gave him a much stronger charge attack from the Centaur stat block. This new charge does decent damage and has the potential to push people off ledges and knock them prone, giving him pretty decent control over the battlefield. In the game League of Legends, Hecarim has the ability to hit enemies in an area with his lance, or glaive, so I decided to show off his combat prowess in a different way. Whenever Hecarim damages a creature with any attack, he can instantly make an attack with his glaive on any creature within 10 feet of himself. The reason I designed this ability this way was to give him more uniqueness and the ability to intimidate players by showing that Hecarim is a very capable martial fighter. I kinda built Hecarim around this entire rampage ability, so it's going to be coming up a lot as I continue to explain his stat block. Hecarim has been shown to be quite resilient and heal from damaging others, so I've decided to give Hecarim another unique and twisted ability, instead of just recycling other forms of healing such as regeneration or second wind. Hecarim has the ability to regain missing hit points based on creatures he kills in battle. Whenever he drops a creature to 0 hit points, Hecarim regains up to 3 of that creature's largest hit die as healing. This means if he somehow kills the party's barbarian fighter, Hecarim regains up to 3d12 hit points, because a barbarian's hit die is a d12 and a fighter's hit die is a d10. Obviously, the barbarian's is larger. If there is any confusion about this ability, rule it however you like. This is just my own personal version of the character. I encourage you to change anything you want to suit your needs. For Hecarim's attacks, we gave him a multi-attack, allowing him to make 2 glaive attacks, or 1 slam attack and 1 glaive attack. This, mixed with his rampage ability, means Hecarim could charge a creature and hit them with a slam attack, then as a part of his multi-attack, hit them with 1 glaive attack. Then, with his rampage ability, make 1 additional glaive attack. So just to recap, Hecarim charges, slams, glaives, glaives. If all of these attacks hit, Hecarim could deal up to 5d6 plus 6 damage, and an additional 2d10 plus 12 damage in 1 round, if all of these attacks land and are not criticals, of course. That's 46 total damage on average, or 68 damage maximum not counting critical hits. Doing 68 damage in 1 turn could definitely intimidate most players. However, Hecarim still has a few more tricks up his hooves. I decided to give Hecarim his ultimate ability from League of Legends called Onslaught of Shadow, on a recharge of 5 or 6 on a d6. This ability lets Hecarim summon a wave of his Spectral Knights and dash to a target location within 30 feet. During this dash, Hecarim can pass through just about anything from people to brick walls, but maybe not magical barriers depending on how the DM wants to rule it. But during this dash, all creatures that Hecarim passes through or are up to 10 feet away from him take 2d10 necrotic damage, and has to make a wisdom saving throw or become frightened of Hecarim until the end of his next turn. This attack allows Hecarim to separate and manipulate the battlefield even more than he is already capable of, as well as close the gap between himself and any ranged threats the party may try to deploy. The saving throw is relatively easy to succeed, but let's not forget that Hecarim will also get 1 glaive attack after the dash as long as he passes through or nearby a creature because of his rampage ability. Last but not least, I didn't want to completely overload him with too many abilities and attacks, so I let him make up to 3 glaive attacks for his legendary actions. These attacks also activate his rampage ability, so essentially he has 6 legendary attacks if he is able to damage a creature with each one. And with that, I think we have created a fearsome and deadly version of Hecarim worthy of a blue ribbon. As always, I leave the link to the monster stat block and my script in the description for you guys to check out. If you enjoyed that video, you should leave a like and subscribe to the channel. We also have a Facebook group where we discuss video topics and new additions to our community. The link to that group, and other ways to support the channel, are in the description. Thank you to all the mages out there. Until next time, bye-bye.